Maria Alvarez. Daniel Reed, two names whispered in the same breath as the Pacific fog rolls over a quiet California suburb. The night Maria vanished, the streetlights hummed like witnesses afraid to speak. Neighbors remember her smile, her careful steps, the way she checked the locks twice. Daniel was already behind bars then, convicted, labeled the architect of a murder for hire that never fully made sense, and yet Maria would be found dead after his conviction, alone, silent, as if the story refused to end. This is not a tale of justice served, it is a slow descent into doubt, where every answer creates a darker question, and the opening scene already feels wrong in ways no verdict can explain. Before the headlines hardened, Maria Alvarez was a presence, warm voice, measured laugh, a woman rebuilding life after betrayal. Friends say she carried fear like a second shadow, ever since the trial began. Daniel Reed, once her husband, once trusted, had been accused of hiring a stranger to kill her, a plot interrupted, exposed, punished. The courtroom declared victory, yet Maria never relaxed. She spoke of being watched, of phones clicking dead, of cars idling too long outside her home. Police called it trauma, paranoia, the echo of a brutal legal battle, but fear has a texture, and Maria felt it every night, even after Daniel was sentenced, even after the doors of the prison closed, as if the danger had merely changed its shape. The investigation into Daniel Reed unfolded like a clean narrative, too clean: a disgruntled husband, financial stress, a supposed intermediary, a hitman who never struck. Prosecutors stacked timelines neatly, phone records, cash withdrawals, ambiguous conversations that sounded lethal when slowed down. Jurors leaned forward. The story felt familiar, comforting in its clarity. Daniel denied everything, his voice flat, his eyes searching for Maria who would not meet his gaze. When the guilty verdict landed, the room exhaled. Justice had a sound that day, a finality, yet Maria did not celebrate. She cried, not with relief, but with something closer to dread, as if the conviction had sealed a door she still needed open. Months passed in uneasy quiet. Maria moved apartments, changed routines, avoided mirrors at night. She told a friend that the trial taught her how easily stories can be bent, how words can become weapons. She kept a notebook of small details, license plates, unfamiliar footsteps, dreams where Daniel smiled from behind glass. Police follow-ups were brief. The threat was gone, they said, the convicted husband neutralized, but fear does not respect paperwork. Maria began recording voice memos, fragmented thoughts, apologies to no one, warnings to herself. The last recording ended abruptly, a soft intake of breath, then silence, the kind of silence that lingers long after sound has fled. They found Maria in her apartment on a gray morning, the ocean air heavy with salt and sirens, no sign of forced entry, no struggle neighbors could recall, her body positioned carefully, unsettlingly calm. Detectives spoke in low tones. This was not the chaos of panic, this was deliberate, methodical. The irony hit hard, the woman at the center of a murder for hire case, now dead. After the man accused of wanting her dead was already convicted, the case file groaned open again, reality tearing through the tidy ending. Officers exchanged glances that said what reports could not. Something here was deeply misaligned, and the story everyone thought they knew had just fractured. Autopsy results arrived like a whisper that grew into a scream, time of death unclear, substances in her system that raised more questions than answers, not enough to call it simple, too much to ignore. The apartment revealed staged normalcy, dinner prepared but untouched, a television paused mid-scene, shoes placed neatly by the door. Investigators searched for fingerprints, found none that mattered. Surveillance cameras nearby had been conveniently offline, coincidence piled upon coincidence. The notebook Maria kept was missing, so were her phone and laptop. It felt less like a crime of passion, more like an erasure, as if someone wanted to subtract Maria from her own story, leaving only confusion behind. Attention turned back to Daniel Reed. From his cell he learned of Maria's death through a guard's passing comment. Witnesses say he sat down slowly, asked for paper, and wrote for hours. His attorneys insisted he had no access, no reach, yet prosecutors felt pressure. The public demanded symmetry. If he wanted her dead once, surely he succeeded later. But the evidence resisted that comfort. Phone logs from prison were clean, visits accounted for, letters monitored. Still whispers spread. Did he plan it all along? Was the first plot merely a rehearsal? Doubt infected the investigation, and every assumption became suspect. including the ones that had already put a man away for life. Detectives chased old leads with new hunger. The alleged intermediary vanished after the trial. The supposed hitman recanted statements in a drunken affidavit, claiming coercion, misinterpretation, fear. Records showed inconsistencies never addressed. Details once dismissed as noise now screamed for attention. Maria's voice memos were reconstructed from cloud fragments. Phrases emerged. They want the story finished, not the truth. I was never the target, just the evidence. The room went quiet when those words played. Investigators stared at one another, realizing the victim might have understood something far larger, something the court had missed entirely. Financial records reopened another wound. Maria had recently changed beneficiaries, moved funds into obscure accounts, met with a private investigator quietly. Receipts showed meetings near the courthouse during the trial. She was gathering something, building a counter-narrative. Emails recovered hinted at threats tied not to Daniel, but to business partners, shell companies. A lawsuit buried beneath the murder charges. The motive shifted. Money often does that. The murder-for-hire plot began to look like camouflage, a dramatic distraction that swallowed oxygen, while quieter crimes hid in its shadow. And Maria, once framed as the intended victim, may have been racing to expose a different killer altogether. The deeper they dug, the more the timeline warped. Maria had testified reluctantly, coached by attorneys to keep it narrow, stick to the script. Anything beyond was ruled irrelevant. Her fear was edited for clarity, her doubts trimmed for efficiency. Justice loves clean lines, but life refuses them. Witnesses now admitted to pressure, to suggestions disguised as guidance. The case against Daniel Reed had grown legs of its own, running faster than facts, and Maria, caught between truth and survival, was running out of time. Every clue circled back to the same haunting realization: her death was not an ending, it was a correction. Then came the recording no one expected, hidden on an old answering machine stored by a neighbor. Maria's voice calm, resigned, saying, if anything happens, look past my husband, look at who benefits when stories are believed without question. The room chilled, prosecutors went silent. This was not paranoia, it was foresight. The conviction that once felt righteous now felt premature, possibly catastrophic. Daniel Reed's letters from prison echoed similar warnings, ignored, mocked, filed away, two voices separated by bars and graves, telling the same story too late. Exhumation orders followed, evidence retested, substances traced to a supplier connected to a corporate case Maria had quietly supported. A whistleblower network emerged, people who vanished socially not physically, silenced by reputation, bankruptcy, fear. Maria had been one of them, her death a warning shot. The murder-for-hire narrative now looked engineered, an elegant way to destroy credibility, paint her life as chaos, her marriage as motive. Daniel Reed, the perfect villain, angry, disposable. When the truth surfaced, it did so reluctantly, like something ashamed of how long it had hidden. Court transcripts reread under this light sounded different, pauses where objections cut off answers, lines of questioning redirected away from finance. The jury never heard the full story, neither did Maria. Not in time. She had been racing the clock, believing exposure would protect her. Instead it isolated her. The people she trusted most were bound by strategy, not safety, and when she finally stood alone, the machinery closed in, efficient, quiet, irreversible. Investigators now faced a cruel arithmetic, a man imprisoned, a woman dead, and a truth orphaned by process. As pressure mounted, a sealed motion surfaced, filed days before Maria died, requesting protection in exchange for testimony. It was never processed, lost between departments, bureaucracy as accomplice. Daniel Reed's conviction was vacated quietly, too quietly for headlines that once screamed. He walked out older, thinner, carrying apologies he could no longer deliver. Reporters asked about revenge. He said nothing, just looked toward the coast, where fog erased distances, and perhaps guilt. The system recalibrated itself, but no recalibration could resurrect the dead. The final report concluded Maria Alvarez was murdered to prevent testimony. The murder-for-hire plot deemed a strategic misdirection, not by Daniel Reed, but by entities threatened by disclosure. Justice acknowledged its error without apology. Settlements followed, names redacted, accountability diluted. The public moved on, but the unease remained, because the story refused closure. It suggested a world where truth is negotiable, where outcomes matter more than accuracy, and where victims can be repurposed as villains when convenient. In the end, the most devastating twist lingered quietly. Maria and Daniel had discovered the truth together, secretly, before the trial, their divorce a facade, their conflict staged to draw fire, the murder-for-hire story planted intentionally, a decoy to flush out the real killers. Daniel agreed to be the villain, to go to prison, believing Maria would live to expose everything. Her death broke that pact, and turned sacrifice into tragedy. The story was never about a husband wanting his wife dead, it was about two people trying to survive a truth powerful enough to kill, and only one of them did.